All right, welcome back, everyone. Ready for another deep dive? Today, we're going to tackle something super important for anyone thinking about doing business up north in Canada, that is. We're talking about what it really means to travel there for business, specifically as a business visitor.
Definitely a hot topic.
Yeah, and we've all been there, right?
Yeah.
Staring at those official government websites, like trying to decipher another language. We want to make sure you're prepped, not puzzled. So, think of this deep dive as your cheat sheet for confidently prepping for your Canadian business adventure. No surprises in the border, that's the goal.
Love that. No surprises at the border.
Right. So, first things first. What does it even mean to be a business visitor in Canada? It's more specific than just bringing your laptop on vacation. Yeah.
Way more specific.
Yeah. We're talking about temporarily entering Canada for business, BUT, and this is key. You're not actually joining their workforce.
Exact.
Big distinction because that impacts how long you can stay, what you can do while you're there, the whole nine yards. So, to break it down, being a business visitor means you're there for a set time, usually maxing out at 6 months. You're there for specific business activities, not looking for a job or setting up shop permanently. Makes sense so far?
Totally.
Good, because this is the foundation. Now, why does Canada care so much about this distinction?
Well, like any country, they're protective of their job market, right? So these rules are partly about making sure short-term business visits don't end up taking jobs away from Canadians.
Makes you think about the balance a lot of countries try to strike, welcoming international business, but also protecting their own interests. Tricky stuff.
It really is.
And you can actually see this reflected in the activities that are allowed for business visitors. For example, you can go to that big tech conference, negotiate a contract, even do some training while you're there.
Right.
But setting up a Canadian branch of your company, totally different story, needs a work permit, different visa category. That's a whole other deep dive.
We'll save that one for later.
Definitely. So, bottom line, think of the business visitor status as your temporary access pass to the Canadian business world. It's got its own rules, its own limits. Get those right, and you're golden. But once you know you are a business visitor, that's where the fun really begins. Visa versus ETA. Anyone else's eyes glaze over just hearing that.
Oh, tell me about it. Those forms can be a real headache.
Seriously. And it's one of those things that can really trip people up
Yeah, and it can get complicated fast.
because it all comes down to what passport are you holding? Some countries are part of Canada's ETA program, which is great. Streamlined online, you get pre-authorization before you even book your flight, but
There's always a but.
if your country's not on that ETA list, then it's the visa application process.
Mm.
Longer, more detailed, and you definitely don't want to be figuring that out at the last minute.
Nope, trust me on that one.
So, figuring out which one you need, visa or ETA, that's step one, non negotiable. Get it sorted early. And while we're talking crucial details, anyone ever heard of these event codes they mentioned?
Event codes, I think I've seen those on some forms, yeah.
Okay, so let's say you're going to a conference in Canada, big industry thing.
Right.
The organizers might have a specific code you need for your visa or ETA application, like a secret handshake for event attendees.
Interesting. So it's like a shortcut, makes things smoother.
Exactly. It's a way for Canadian officials to confirm why you're there, make sure the event checks out. So if you're conference bound, get that code early. Don't leave it till the last minute. You'll thank me later.
Always good advice.
Yeah.
Preparation is key.
Makes sense, right? Keeps things organized.
Absolutely.
All right, so you've got your business visitor status down. You've figured out the whole visa or ETA thing. You've even got your event code if you need it. Feeling like a pro yet?
Almost. But we can't forget the most important part.
Oh, right. Packing those bags, suitcase, briefcase. What are we thinking?
Well, both might be necessary. We got to talk about the packing list, the stuff they don't always tell you.
Okay, so beyond the obvious passport, visa, or ETA lay it on me, what are the surprises?
Well, even seasoned travelers might overlook some of these. Did you know, for example, that you need letters of support from your employer?
Wait, really? I thought just having a work ID was enough.
Nope, not quite. And there's more. You also need a letter of invitation from the Canadian business you're visiting. They really want that paper trail.
2 letters? They're not messing around, huh?
All about proving your intentions, right? Showing you're not there to sneakily join the Canadian workforce.
Ah, protecting those jobs. I get it. So these letters, it's like proof that you're there for legit business, prearranged, and everything.
Exactly. Connecting those dots for the Canadian authorities. It's not just about getting into Canada either, having all this documentation handy. Huge time saver at the border, trust me.
Oh, yeah. No one wants to be that person holding up the line. So organized is key. Speaking of which, proof of funds. Gotta show them you can support yourself while you're enjoying those Canadian treats.
Exactly. Reinforces the whole temporary visitor thing. No long-term freeloading allowed.
They're on to us. All right, so we've covered letters, proof of funds. What else should people know before they start packing their bags?
One more important thing. Traveling with kids. Different story. Especially if they're not with both parents.
Yeah, makes sense. Canada's pretty serious about protecting kids, right?
Absolutely. Strict laws, lots of regulations to make sure they're safe.
So if the family's tagging along on that Canadian business trip, best to check the guidelines. Yeah. Don't want to get caught off guard.
100%.
Yeah.
Especially since rules can always change, it's always best to be up to date.
Solid advice. We'll make sure a link to those guidelines in the show notes, just in case. But for now, let's zoom out a bit. We've gone over a lot of specifics, but there's a bigger picture here, right?
Totally.
Yeah.
It's easy to get lost in the details of visas and paperwork, but this is all happening within a much larger context. International business travel, it's a whole different world these days.
It's true. Years ago, business travel seemed like this exclusive thing. Now it feels like everyone's jetting off for meetings and conferences.
Right. It's become so much more common, and that's led to a lot of opportunities for sure, but also some new challenges.
Yeah, it's like a whole new world of opportunities and headaches all at the same time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And like you said, more opportunities, but also new challenges. We've got instant global reach now, connecting with people across the world. But that also means navigating a maze of rules and regulations, cultural differences.
And don't forget those packing lists.
Oh, absolutely. Can't forget those. But seriously, when you think about it, these rules, like the ones we're talking about with Canada, they're just one example of how countries are adapting to this new way of doing business. They're trying to find that balance.
Between saying, come on in, do business here.
Right, exactly. But also, we've got to protect our own interests. Could be economic, security, even public health these days.
It's interesting, though, how those rules can give you a peek into a country's values, like Canada being so focused on child protection. That says something about their priorities. It's a good reminder that when you're traveling for business, it's not just about the deal, you're stepping into a different culture.
So true. And being aware of those cultural differences, how you approach things, it can make or break those business interactions.
It's all connected. Well, we've covered a lot of ground here today. So, for anyone listening who's got a Canadian business trip on the horizon, what are the key takeaways?
Number one, knowledge is power, no doubt. The more you understand the specific rules, the better prepared you are. Get that documentation in order and keep this bigger picture in mind. It's all connected.
Because really, who wants to spend their trip stressing over visa issues or scrambling for paperwork? Being prepared means you can focus on the good stuff, making those connections, exploring new opportunities.
And enjoying Canada.
Exactly. All right, folks, that wraps up our deep dive into the world of Canadian business travel. We hope you found it helpful and insightful. Safe travels, everyone.